This is a Fox News alert. You're looking live at the Senate floor there. This is the final vote coming up in the Senate on a stopgap government funding bill. As we mentioned, the House passed that measure earlier today. The Senate first had a procedural vote just moments ago. Now we're waiting on this final vote. Spending $81 billion on disaster relief, the senators decided they are going to wait until after the first of the year to deal with that. So now you're talking about the government funding. This is the shutdown vote everybody's waited for. They have to get to 60 votes in order to get it through. The House, as we mentioned earlier today, did its job on that front.
Every time we get to the end of a year, we think, I've just got to get it done. I've got to get it done.
The one thing that they're supposed to do is to keep this government running, to keep the lights on.
Look, we have maintained our position all along as we want a clean bill, and that's what we hope happens, and we hope it happens soon.
The hard right has such a pull on the Republican Party that any form of compromise that does things in the middle splits their party.
There'll be drama, there'll be chaos, there'll be yelling and screaming, and then we'll avert a shutdown.
News break. The Republicans control the Congress. They control the House, they control the Senate, and they have the signature in the White House. And they don't need us to keep government open.
On this vote, the yeas are 231, the nays are 188. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Again, the House passing it. The president weighing in today on Twitter, as he often does. House Democrats want to shut down for the holidays in order to distract from the very popular just-passed tax cuts. House Republicans don't let this happen. Pass the CR today and keep our government open. They did just that. Let's bring in our panel from Steve Hayes, editor-in-chief for the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at Real Clear Politics and host of No Labels Radio on Sirius XM, and Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist. If we have this vote, we're going to break into the panel and kind of get our tally as it goes along here. Steve, your thoughts on this end-of-year push, as we often see a fiscal cliff?
Yeah, well, it's been interesting to watch Republicans during this debate about the government shutdown because they've really stuck together, despite the fact that there have been some pretty serious internal differences among Republicans in the House on levels of defense spending, what have you. But they've stuck together, and every time Republicans stick together in an environment like this, it diminishes the leverage that Democrats have. This gets them through to the next one of these next month. I think Republicans will have much less leverage at that point because you're going to see a push, I think, by Republican hawks to increase the defense spending number overall. And Democrats are going to point to the Budget Control Act and say, if you want to increase defense spending, we're going to increase domestic spending.
A.B.
Yeah, the January is looking like a real problem. Somehow they managed to put off not only dealing with these tough decisions on spending, but whatever deal they've made to get through this deadline involved dealing with disaster relief later and dealing, most importantly, with immigration, which is a really contentious issue. A lot of people have been assured that this is going to be, that there are a bipartisan coalition at work on this right now, and this is going to be dealt with in January. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of threats from proponents of fixing some kind of legalization for the Dreamers before that January 19th deadline for the next spending bill. That comes before the State of the Union address. It could be a very tough time for Republicans.
You know, on the spending for the disaster relief, one key figure is Puerto Rico Governor Rosello, and he was up on the Hill waiting for this to see if it was going to happen. Again, what they said, the Senate is punting till January. He says that's okay. We're expecting a better bill, meaning probably more money. Puerto Rico and other disasters rolled in there. Molly, it does look like January is going to be quite something.
Right. And one of the things that's interesting about a shutdown is that Republicans have previously shut down over concerns about the budget or Obamacare or other things that they thought were really serious. They believe they took a political hit for that, so they're not inclined to shut down the government. Democrats, being the party of government, are not inclined to shut down the government, even though they had claimed that they might do it over legalization or amnesty for people who had come here illegally. So there's not really much of a caucus on the Hill for people who want fiscal restraint. You know, one of the largest complaints about this tax bill, it's very good for corporations, it's very good for jumpstarting the economy, but is it enough to offset some of these spending problems we have? But there aren't people fighting for that, except for maybe Rand Paul, who said that if, you know, he doesn't want to see people busting through spending caps, and he pointed out that busting through spending caps has increased our deficit by $6 trillion, which is something that Congress has done 29 times. It just doesn't seem like there's much of a desire to pull in spending, and unfortunately I'm not sure if there's much public desire for that either.
It's such a turnabout from where we were two election cycles ago, when a lot of the campaigning happened in front of the national debt clock. Steve, you had an interview with the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, in which, to the Weekly Standard, at which, at the end of the day, he says, we've got to go after the root cause, health care, inflation, and entitlements. Welfare reform is going to be our next lift. We're never going to give up on entitlement reform and the things we need to do to get the debt under control. With one more reconciliation, I think we have a pretty good shot at getting some of these things done. But the Senate Majority Leader telling Axios today, I think the Democrats are not going to be interested in entitlement reform, so I would not expect to see that on the agenda. That's a bit of a different message from two sides of the Capitol.
Yeah, it was pretty extraordinary differences. I mean, Paul Ryan has made no secret going into my interview that he wanted to address welfare reform, that he was always going to be eager to return to entitlement reform, that he wanted to get back even to health care reform. And Mitch McConnell came out today and I think sort of dropped a nuke on Paul Ryan's plans. Ryan said these are the top priorities of his 2018 agenda. Mitch McConnell, in effect, said, not going to do that. That's not on my agenda at all. And he went even further. He said he wants to work, this is Mitch McConnell, said he wants to work with Democrats on an infrastructure bill. We've heard the president talk about $1 trillion infrastructure bill. There's not much enthusiasm, I can tell you, in House conservatives for a big infrastructure bill, particularly one that's defended in sort of Keynesian terms that Donald Trump has been defending. I think Molly's right about spending restraint, but of course the real spending restraint, the only spending restraint that really matters in the long term is entitlements. And without entitlement reform, that debt is going to continue to grow exponentially.
And maybe there's another side to this, and that is the Obamacare question. Again, the Senate Majority Leader is saying today that there's not going to be an immediate effort for another repeal and replace. Lindsey Graham saying, you bet, we're going back at it, because without the mandate, Obamacare is going to take some hits pretty quickly.
This is really a risk that they took, repealing the mandate, because that's what gets more people who are healthier into these marketplaces and makes them more and keeps them more competitive. The people in the pool are going to be sicker and older. The cost for the coverage is going to be more expensive. And so you heard President Trump this week say, we're going to replace it later with something that's going to be much better. This is the last thing that they want to do, to go back to the drawing board on Obamacare. It's why the Speaker tried to sort of put it off, but it's going to become politically perilous for them if come the middle of the spring or summer, inching towards that midterm election, maybe we're not at magical 6% economic growth as a result of the tax cut bill, and the public is really soured on what's happened to the Obamacare exchanges, begging Congress to do something about it. That's really a political risk going into those elections.
All right, last word, Molly.
Well, getting rid of the individual mandate was important because it was a horrible assault on people's liberty and it was a regressive tax on the poor. But AB is right. The regulations that accompany Obamacare are what caused so much trouble for the efficiency and the cost of that program. And Congress did not handle that this year, and it is something that they need to deal with. So get ready.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot on the table in January. Should be packed.